So Andrea is our Vice President of Sales. We've been back from Printing United for about a week now, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've been doing the show with RISO for several years now, almost a decade actually, and it seems like this might have been one of our most successful shows. What are your overall feelings on this as the Vice President of Sales?
You know what? I would agree with your assessment. Possibly it was the location.
Okay.
The Vegas location is always great, but you really never know why people are going to Vegas. Are they going to the print show, or are they going because Vegas is a fun place? Suffice it to say that those folks that came to Atlanta to the print show were seriously looking at various products, researching, buying. It was a good group, really good crowd.
So, and it did seem like the flow was steady, but I do think that something was nice this year we've never done before is we technically launched a product at the show. We launched the T1200.
We did, yeah. That was kind of different.
Yeah, it was interesting. Fun fact that people may not realize is most of our employees had never seen that product until they got to Atlanta, in fact. So it truly launched at Printing United.
Correct. So what happened was a lot of customers came in the booth and specifically said, we want to see the T1200. How do they know about it if we just launched it? You know, we live in a global space, right? Mm-hmm. So they visit all sorts of different websites from different parts of the world, and other RISO subsidiaries had already let it be known that this product is coming.
Okay.
And so they'd seen it here, there, and everywhere, and they finally got to see it live on stage with you. It was your best friend for about 3 days.
It was. I definitely got familiar with talking about it. In fact, this is pretty much very close to life size of what the T1200. I mean, maybe a little shorter, but lengthwise.
A bit more condensed.
A bit more condensed. Yeah. So using this as an example, because
sure.
The show is, the T1200 is actually still in process from the show. Could you share a little bit about the T1200 and what customers really were engaged with and what you think was the big selling factor of it?
Well, we've had the twin engine VALEZUS now for a few years, mm-hmm. the T2100. And a lot of people, that's been a very successful product.
It absolutely.
But on more than one occasion did we have customers say to us, we like, maybe you can show the 8,000 sheet stacker, that's the one. We like the 8,000 sheet stacker. We like the 8,000 sheet feeder. We like the 8,000 sheet stacker as well. We don't necessarily have the volume or the need for a twin engine unit. Can we get the configuration as a single engine? And so in comes the T1200, launched at Printing United, where we finally gave our customers what they've been clamoring for some 18 to 20 months now, something that is 160 pages per minute, still duplexes at 80 pages per minute, mm-hmm. not 160 pages per minute like the full version VALEZUS. So that's something that is more in line from a budget perspective with this crowd, in and around the $150,000 mark. So they were super pleased, and we actually sold a few of these on the floor immediately after your, I wouldn't say, it took about an hour, but it certainly followed your presentation.
Well, I mean, it was a highlight of the presentation on stage with me, as we pointed out. Now, something that my presentation spoke to at the show is it allows for hours of uninterrupted printing, and that speaks to the fact that this dual stacker switches automatically, and as I like to gesture on stage, you can load paper in while continuing to run and move along the device. So.
And the same can be said for the stacker.
Right.
As one stacker is full, you can empty out the paper that is in there, get to work on it. Meanwhile, the unit continues to flow to the empty stacker.
And that is a big differentiator as compared to the, for example, GL series with the high capacity feeder and stacker is
sure.
This particular device, because I did actually have a couple of customers ask me, well, what's the difference between this and I've seen your high capacity feeder stacker? And correct me if I'm wrong, I certainly hope I'm not, but it seems as though a big differentiator for the VALEZUS over the ComColor GL is the fact that it's hours of uninterrupted printing, because even when it runs out of paper or the paper gets full and needs to be unloaded, you don't have to stop printing during that time.
That's bang on. That's pretty much the big difference. That in the VALEZUS series uses a different ink than the GL series does. The ink is also priced differently. so it's a little bit more cost conscious at that level, because the people buying this type of equipment are typically, doing 500,000 prints a month. In the case of the twin engine VALEZUS, we have one customer doing 4 million copies a month on that one unit. So it'll vary between 500,000 to 4 million, somewhere in there falls that customer that has a need for the VALEZUS. But one thing we did see at the show over and over is the fact that people really like the technology that is oil-based, and RISO continues to be the only oil-based inkjet technology out there. And the beauty of that is we don't have a need for a decurler, we don't need a dryer, so right off the bat we save about 5 feet.
So speaking of, not to interrupt you there for a moment, but we're talking about size of feet. We did mention this is a little more compact. In fact, you and I are able to have a conversation on the length of this and still hear each other just fine. What is the actual length of the VALEZUS T1200?
So the twin engine VALEZUS is about 16 feet. This one is 12 feet.
Okay.
Whereas a GL 9730 fully loaded is about 8 feet. So I guess it grows in increments of 4. Now the nice thing,
well,
again,
how does that compare to other inkjets that were at the show that were similar?
Very good question. Being an oil-based technology, the full version VALEZUS being at 16 feet, the next closest competitor is about 23 feet. Then you get into some of the $1 million devices that are in at 30 to 35 feet. So the twin engine VALEZUS T1200 is by far the fastest device with that type of 16-foot footprint. This one at 160 pages per minute, again 80 pages duplex simultaneously, comes in at 12 feet. So if it's footprint you're looking for as an end user, RISO is the place to go. Again, the beauty of having that oil-based ink, we don't need the ventilation, again the dryer decurler, the fact that we can plug it into any regular outlet because it's oil-based. Again, we don't need that type of heat to dry the output. The only downside is oil-based ink, you're not printing uncoated stock.
Gotcha.
But there's so much work on the non-coated level that, again, our customers are printing millions and millions on our devices.
Now, you did mention we sold a few of the T1200 at the show, but obviously, with the number of orders we signed, how many signed orders were there in there?
It was about 115 signed orders.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nothing to sneeze at, for sure.
No. Now, that includes about 25 duplicators.
Okay.
So pull the duplicators out of that number, that leaves about 90 inkjet devices. Of those 90, a majority were GL VALEZUS, and then you have some FTs as well.
So that speaks to my next point, which was, wow, we did spend a lot of time talking about the T1200, and that was a big thing that we launched it at the show. Could you speak to a little bit about the general traffic in the booth, the demonstrations that were going on? Because I mean, I did occupy the stage for a fair amount of time, and I still saw plenty of customers looking around at other products.
Yeah. Well, an event like this is all about metrics, and there were several people at the RISO booth, RISO staff, looking after the metrics. We did slightly over 200 demonstrations over the course.
No wonder we were so tired.
Oh yeah. Those first 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday, was nonstop.
Yes,
right.
I'll agree
We started
with that.
at 9, and before we knew it, it was 5 o'clock. It was absolutely nonstop. No stopping for lunch. Nobody left their stations. Friday slowed down a bit, which is typically the scenario with a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday event.
Yep.
Friday's typically slow. I'll have you know that next year in Las Vegas, it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we may well see 3 very full days.
Well, that just leads to the excitement, and I guess leaves the opportunity to recuperate in other ways in Las Vegas on Friday.
Vegas, there's no recuperating in Las Vegas.
That is a valid point. So if we were to say, aside from the T1200, what would you say was one of the busiest stations or most popular accessories at the show?
Interestingly enough, the FT series models that we sold were in large part a result of the station that had the straight shooter.
That is a really exciting and popular accessory.
Super popular. People were coming in, they saw the straight shooter because, again, it gives you that non-stop envelope feeding capability.
Because it's a top load, bottom feed.
Top load, bottom feed. We had it connected to an FT. Some people saw that feeder, purchased the GL, and we're going to connect the straight shooter to that.
So one of my favorite things that I speak to when I'm talking about the straight shooter is the fact that it's a rollaway accessory, which most of ours aren't. So it allows the opportunity to use your Calm Color inkjet or RISO inkjet for other purposes as well. And then when you are ready to print your envelopes, you can roll it right up and off to the races you go. Do you find that that is something in your experience customers are super interested in, or is an advantage?
End users love modular devices. If you can roll it away and convert the device into something else, absolutely. Which, by the way, is something we cannot do with this type of configuration. We did have people say to us, can we remove the stacker if I want to do some envelopes? Because you really can't fit envelopes into a stacker. And the answer is no. This type of configuration is what it is. The full version VALEZUS is what it is. You literally have to get the standalone RISO, the engine that looks like this, and to that add accessories like the straight shooter.
Well, so you bring up another valid point. We've been talking about footprint. We've mentioned 16 feet, 23 feet in other manufacturers. The base engine unit in itself is 3 by 4 feet. So if I were to take a Calm Color GL or an FT and stand it by itself, it would measure 3 by 4 feet, and it still has the ability to run up to 160 pages per minute. And I think that was something I heard a few times people, I don't want to say ooh and ah over, but as much as the production customers ooh and ah when I pointed out, hey, if you want to see just how compact 160 pages per minute can get, we did have a standalone unit on display, and that actually got its own set of traffic as well.
It did. Listen, when you talk about a technology that is 160 pages per minute, you're looking at a device that is printing 2.5 sheets of paper per second. That's impressive. So if you are a RISO salesperson, you're looking to engage with your customers and show them what the technology is, this really is a show me device. You want to get your customers in front of the equipment.
Which probably speaks to why we were able to sign so many orders at the show, because customers came, they saw
it live, yeah.
And they got excited. And now, but let's not forget that we have seen great success with our virtual demos that we've been doing in the past few years.
Because when you do your virtual demos, our camera people are able to focus the cameras on the exit tray, one of the 2 exit trays, which again allows the person sitting in front of their monitor at home or at the office to see the device outputting 160 a minute, 2.5 pages per second. Nobody's going to sit there for an hour, but if they did, they'd see 9,600 pages come out in that hour in color, all letter size, of course. So yeah, that virtual demo is key to all our RISO customers, and specifically our RISO dealers. Brianna is a person of contact, and our marketing manager, Jesse Heindel, get a hold of either one of them or your RISO salesperson.
Of course.
And they will set up that presentation, that demo virtually.
Actually, I did one of our sales representatives from the West Coast. He had a customer who was so interested in seeing the products, and he was at the show. He actually was walking around with his laptop, essentially giving his own virtual demo while the show was going on, and that I guess that was
a RISO salesperson.
It was a RISO salesperson, and he was
with his laptop
walking around doing it. It got posted to our social media because it really caught people's eye. But I think that speaks volumes. We print volumes, but that speaks volumes to the flexibility of our staff, both at a show, but just in general, that we've adapted to less travel and the ability to still show these products to customers live. And then, of course, being at a trade show and able to see these live in action.
100%. So to recap, I just want to mention to all those watching this, RISO now has 9 models in the lineup of products. They range anywhere from a low of about $25,000 to a high of $250,000. So there's a RISO to fit all budgets. Okay, from a production perspective, you've got a fully loaded GL 9730 coming in at about $100,000. You now have the T1200 coming in at about $150,000 to $160,000, depending on some configurations, and of course the full version VALEZUS at about $250,000. So there is a model for every budget, and for all our RISO dealers out there, current RISO dealers and potential new dealers, you cannot understand that a print shop cannot function without ink, and this really gives you a chance to go in there and talk about a really interesting story.
Well, we certainly did plenty of interesting stories at the show, both before and after hours in some situations. But Andre, thank you for taking the time to recap the show with us and go into a little detail.
Not as noisy here as it was on stage.
Oh my gosh, it was so loud there. In fact, it seemed too quiet when I got on the airplane, ironically enough. So, but happy to be home back here and looking forward to our next show, but definitely looking forward to next year in Las Vegas, even if it is a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday full day show.
Yes.
Have a good one. Thank you, everyone.